These are the things I wish I knew sooner, the things you should not say and do when you come to Mexico. Something you should absolutely not do in Mexico is use the tune or the song. Although that's totally innocent in the US, here, what it translates to, like there's words associated with that beat, and they are some of the worst words you can say to somebody here in Mexico.
I was like maybe 6-7 years old, and we were going to my grandmother's house with my sister, and the first thing that we did was playing or like knocking with that song at my grandmother's door. And obviously all my family and my father was like, oh!
And it's so bad that we can't even say the translation on this video. So in the US, if you're walking and some car stops to let you pass, you might give them a little wave to say thank you. But if somebody ever does this to you in the US, that means they are really, really mad at you. That's like, I'm not even gonna say the words in this video. However, here in Mexico, showing you the back of the hand actually means something totally different.
Yeah, exactly. For example, this is the way that we always say thank you. If you're walking in the street and somebody allows you to pass, the first thing that we do is this thing, always showing the back of our hand. And this all the time means thank you. Or again, if you're already passed by the car, you are gonna take out your hand out of the window and you're gonna show the back of your hand.
Like if somebody lets you merge and you're waving or you're thanking the person behind you, you do that out the window.
Exactly. And compared for what he said that doing this in the US can be really, really rude, here in Mexico we have two things that I'm so embarrassed to say in public. But anyway, this is not personal.
I can do them.
This is not personal. I'm so embarrassed because, yeah, to me it's something really, really bad. But when we do this or when we do
so
this,
this
like
something
this.
like this
and this
is really bad. This is really bad, and also any sharp movement like this is really bad. If you see any one of those things, somebody is really mad at somebody or really mad at you, depending on who they're facing.
Yeah, but again, if you want to say thank you, it's gonna be this way. Because if you're crossing the street or you wanna say thank you here in Mexico, the way you do it in the US, and you say this, so that person is gonna think that you're saying hi or saying hello. And that can be really, really confusing, especially if you don't know that person.
And I think I've heard that this gesture comes from back in the day when they were tipping their hat to somebody to say thank you.
I actually heard something like that it's like you had the hat and you just show respect and gratitude to someone. Actually, I'm not sure, but maybe one of our subscribers can let us know in the comment if that's true, or maybe it's something different.
As long as we're talking about gestures, here's another one. This is what I call the agreeing finger. So if you ever see this often happens when you're eating. Like you're eating with a group of Mexicans and you say something, but then one of them has their mouth full of food. Well, they're not going to talk with their mouth full. Instead, they're going to go like this to say, yes, I agree with you, or something along those lines.
Yeah, especially because it can be really, really hard to be chewing something and then moving your neck. It's like, I don't know, I'm feeling that I'm choking or something. So all the time we're trying to communicate what we want to say when we can't speak. So it's really simple. It's just like trying to make the same movements that you do with your head. But this is really simple and this is really clear. It's like, yes.
I never realized it's the same movements as with your head.
So obviously the finger can't rotate as the neck does. But this is again, yes. And this is no.
By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please click that like button. It helps out a lot. So I'm here with my wife, who was born and raised in Mexico. And I was doing this when I wanted her to come to me sometimes. Like, it was innocent. I wasn't mad at her or anything, but I was just saying, like, hey, I need to show you something. Come over here. But apparently that has a really negative connotation here. And if I ever want her to come over, I should be doing this or something like that.
Yeah, and it was really, really funny because I haven't told him anything about this after a very, very long time. But every time that he used to say this, I was like, what did I do? And I was all the time like waiting for something really negative, and I was immediately not in a good mood. So most of the time we had like serious differences about what he was going to say, for the simple fact that I was already thinking that it was something negative. And maybe many of you as Mexican can agree with me that sometimes when someone does this to you, it's because when we are young or when we are kids, most of the time it's made by an authority. Like, for example, your parents, your teachers, police,
And
somebody
particularly
else.
when you've done something bad.
When you've done something bad. So, for example, you're at school, you made a mess with your friends, whatever, and they're gonna say, they're gonna point on you, and it's gonna say, come. But it's like, you, come. And it's like, I'm screwed. And that's all the time. So mother is like, you, Jordan, come. So immediately you know that doing this, it's gonna have a consequence for something negative that you did. And when we want to call someone, we most of the time say yes. It can be just with these 4 fingers, or also come. This is even more friendly. If you want someone to come, it's like come. Or come.
Or,
and yeah, that's a friendly way to do it. But this is like, oh, I'm gonna be punished.
Or if you want a waitress to come at a restaurant, you can just be like, hey. If you're worried about crooked cops in Mexico, be sure to stick around for number 6. But first, number 5 is don't fall victim to cyber thieves. Look, traveling opens lots of doors to new experiences, but it also exposes your data to potential risks. For example, when you connect to a public Wi-Fi, an unsophisticated hacker with limited skills can get access to your email, private data, usernames, and passwords. Don't let cyber threats ruin your adventures, because with IPVanish VPN, you can browse, stream, and communicate securely from any location or public Wi-Fi. Discover how IPVanish VPN can enhance your travel experience by visiting ipvanish.com/tangerine today and get 30 days risk-free and save big on the yearly plan. I want to thank IPVanish for sponsoring this video, and please go to ipvanish.com/tangerine, because the last thing you want is for your email and bank accounts to get hacked while on vacation. The next big don't we have for you is do not drive in or near Mexico City without having the proper permits for your car. And if your car is a Mexican plated car, you're going to have to get something that's an emissions sticker, basically showing that your car passed the emissions test. And here in Querétaro, at least, we have to do it every 6 months. But if you're driving a foreign car, you can go on this website and get a free pass to drive around Mexico City. But you have to fill out all the information and print out that pass and make sure you have that in your car when you go to Mexico City. Otherwise, they can impound your car, they can hit you with massive fines. Trust me, it's a gigantic headache that you want to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, and also remember to check the hours that your car is allowed to enter to Mexico City, because there are certain hours where not all the plates numbers are allowed to be driving in Mexico City. I remember that once I was going to Mexico City to get my professional certificate, and actually at that time the plate of my father couldn't enter to Mexico City after 11 a.m. in the morning. So we arrived really early, and I remember it was 10:55, like really close to 11 a.m. And a police stopped us, like at the very entrance of Mexico City, 5 minutes earlier than the hour that we were allowed to enter. They stopped us, and they were asking us for a lot of money. Oh, but if you give me like like some amount of pesos, I can allow you to pass. And obviously it was really hard because they actually don't allow you to move. And it's like, if you don't pay me this, I'm gonna take your car with me. It was like, I can't allow this because I already have an appointment to get my professional certificate, and it was really hard to get that appointment. So anyway, what we had to do actually, and it's not that we are proud of, but in this kind of situations, sometimes you have to do it. It's like giving those police the money they're asking you to, and they were like, oh, and I'm gonna give you this Post-it, and if you put this Post-it over your car glass or whatever, they are gonna allow you to keep driving.
Because all the cops in the area have
that.
Yeah,
like every certain number of like feet, you're gonna found another police. So they said like, no, but if you have this sticker there, they're gonna allow you to pass. It was like, what? So yeah, unfortunately, this is another like reason you should be careful when you're driving into Mexico City, especially, that you have all the permission and everything you need to pass by freely without passing by or without going through all these kind of annoying situations.
And speaking of driving, if you're driving your own car here, do not leave the free zones without getting a temporary import permit. So the free zones is the entire Baja Peninsula, part of the state of Sonora, and then 15 kilometers from the border, or is it 20 kilometers? Anyway, close to the border, and also the entire state of Quintana Roo. However, to get to Quintana Roo, you would literally have to drive through the whole country or get your car shipped there. So let's not even bother with Quintana Roo. But if you're leaving that free zone, so if you're driving the Baja Peninsula, it's fine. If you're driving down to Puerto Peñasco or you're driving down to Guaymas, it's gonna be fine. However, if you're leaving that free zone, make sure you get that temporary import permit, because similar to driving around Mexico City, if you don't have that permit, they can and will take your car. And to get your car out of impound, it's frequently more than the value of your entire car. So make sure you do that. Otherwise, you're going to be in deep doo-doo. And in the US, we hear a lot about crooked cops in Mexico, cops trying to get bribes out of people. Well, oftentimes it's because they don't have this temporary import permit, or they don't have the proper permits to drive in Mexico City. And those are two of the biggest situations in which you may be faced with having to pay a bribe. So if you're coming to Mexico, whether flying or driving, it's really important that you make sure all guns and ammunition are totally out of your bag, totally out of your car. Make sure you didn't forget about some ammunition, a box of ammunition that you had buried in the trunk of your car or something like that, because it's a very, very serious penalty here, and that can land you 7 years in prison. Now let's totally change it up and switch to the restaurant topic. So you're going to a restaurant, you're eating, they're never gonna bring you the check until you ask.
Yeah, exactly. It's basic that you should order always the check when you want to leave to a restaurant. Because here in Mexico we have something called sobremesa, which is basically means that after we end eating, we're gonna stay in a table talking and talking and talking for a very long time. So if you go to a restaurant, they never know when you're gonna leave. And it's really, really rude that if the waiter comes and gives you the check without you asking it, it basically means that first option, they want you to leave, or second, they actually want you to leave because they're about to close the place.
And by the way, to ask for the check, even if you don't know any Spanish, you can just raise your hand and go like this, writing, and then they'll know to bring you the check. I know a lot of you foreigners who are coming to vacation in Mexico are really worried about getting sick from the food or water. But if you go to a restaurant or something like that, don't ask, is this safe to eat, or is this safe to drink, or is this water filtered? Because it can come across as rude and condescending. Like, if you go to a restaurant and they serve you a glass of water, that's always 100% of the time going to be filtered water. If they serve you a drink with ice, that ice is going to be made from filtered water. And like, yes, there are times you should be careful. For example, if you see a street food stand and there's nobody there, well, maybe skip that one. But if you have a street food stand that's really busy, well, then that's more likely to have better hygiene and be more safe to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So I was explaining him that actually when there's like a very formal business, no matter if it's like a restaurant or even a very small business that, I don't know, a lady open and just cook her food, etc. When you have the permission of the government to have your food like business, you always are really, really checked by that institution of health, that it's always checking that everything's in order, like using filtered water, that you're washing your vegetables or the food that you use.
Employees are washing their hands.
Employees are washing their hands with clean water,
Yeah.
because that's important, that all the time they're covering
They're
their
wearing the hairnets.
hairnets, etc. Exactly, if you go to a place of street food, there's always a risk, and the risk is gonna be higher than if you go to a restaurant. And also, this is very important, especially if you're going to a restaurant of seafood. If you're not in a city that it's close to the coast, it's gonna be some kind of risk if you're eating seafood. But there's always, it's important to check always the ratings or ask for people like, where should I go to eat? And some of the things that, for example, me as a Mexican, I usually am really careful with, it's like, for example, this aguas de frutas, aguas de sabores.
Where they'll have big jugs of water like this that are different colors. She'll never go to any of those. And you're careful with a lot of the street foods you go to just because you've had some bad experiences. But you know, even if you follow all the rules right, you still might get sick when you come here because being an American or something, you're not used to the different types of bacteria that are here. So yes, you may still get sick. However, there are things you can do to lower your risk. When you come to Mexico on vacation, just assume that at some point during your vacation, you're going to have some stomach issues. So before that happens, I want you to go to the pharmacy and buy these two things, Treda and Birogast. So this thing works miracles. This is actually like all natural, made out of plants. You put like 20 drops of this into some liquid like a water. Just drink that and it works amazing. And then Treda works really well if you have a runny stool. Let's just call it that. But anyway, these two things, buy these before something happens to your stomach and you will thank me later.
Okay, so and talking about this, let's just point a couple of things. First one, this is not a collab with neither of these products, but if you someday want to announce your product, let us know. I'm joking. So anyway, it's really, really important to know that we don't want people to taking medicine without having the opinion of a professional, because it's really, really important. But we're just saying about this stuff because it can be really annoying that you are in a trip and you have any kind of like gastrointestinal symptoms, and it can be really annoying and hard to travel. So actually having this kind of medicine, it's gonna help you to be able to stop that process and to be able to look for medical help. So anyway, if you think it's just a diarrhea, like because of what you ate or something like that, that it's kind of simple, there are a lot of pharmacies here that actually they offer this medical attention for free or almost for free. So you don't even have to go to the hospital.
Yeah, you can go to the pharmacy, and if it says like they offer consultations out there, you go to the pharmacy, they'll have a doctor there. And it might be free. You might have to pay 50 pesos, maybe like $3 to see the doctor, and the doctor is going to write you a prescription in which you can take to that pharmacy and get your medicine.
And talking about this, obviously this is not going to like take the diarrhea away in this case as Treda does, but if you're having like some stomach discomfort, you feel bloated, etc., this works really well. Just be sure, first of all, my advice is to look at this kind of products online and just be sure that you are not allergic to any of the components of the medicine, because that's really important. And again, the most important thing all the time is that if your disease persists, you should always look for medical attention.
So you're coming to an all-inclusive resort on vacation. What I want to encourage you to do is don't be afraid to leave the resort and go explore the towns nearby. Go have tacos at one of the taquerias. Go have like a street food dessert. Maybe you have a marquesita at one of the marquesita stands or something like that.
And always be like up to ask locals, where should you go, where should you eat, because there are so many hidden gems like everywhere you go, and especially many places in Mexico have their own mercados where you're not going to just find people selling fruits, vegetables, etc., but also you'll be able to find the most delicious and affordable food.
Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a ton. And next, watch this video. It's 10 awesome places to visit in Mexico.